Hello, friends. Welcome to Facebook Live with the Nebraska State Education Association. We are so pleased to have with us this evening the president of the University of Nebraska. He is the 8th president, and he started on January 1st, 2020. So he's relatively new. Ted Carter leads the university right now. We have 4 campuses, and he is our university's chief executive officer. He's got quite a resume. I told him I wasn't going to read the whole resume, but it is quite substantial and quite impressive. He was the superintendent at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, and he graduated from there as well as his alma mater and served in the Navy. And we are very pleased that he has come to dry land, which we all know is Nebraska. However, we do have some beautiful water here. It's not quite the same, but we are really pleased that you were able to join us today. And we would like you to just kind of talk to us at first, and then we're going to take questions tonight and visit with you about what's happening at the university, especially during this pandemic, but also looking into the future. Thank you for being with us, President Carter.
Okay, well, thank you, Jenny, and thank you to everybody on Facebook Live via Zoom. I am coming to you from downtown Lincoln, Nebraska, and have a chance to just have a conversation tonight. For many of you, this might be the first time you're seeing me speak. So it's a real privilege to just have a conversation about the value of education, whether it be K-12, post-secondary, all the elements of education that we hold dear here in Nebraska. And I think that's what brings us together tonight. As Jenny briefly described, I served 38 years in the United States Navy. My last 5 years was running the U.S. Naval Academy. The year before that was running the U.S. Naval War College up in Newport, Rhode Island. And if you're wondering how do I connect with educators and the importance of education, it goes all the way back to my childhood growing up in a very small town in rural Rhode Island, in a town called Bartlesville, Rhode Island, about the size of Kearney, if you can imagine that, about the same geography, about the same population, and some of the same economics. My mother was an English teacher in my high school. She was my English teacher for 3 out of my 4 years there, so that gives you a sense of how small that town was. I graduated with about 200 in my high school class. And throughout my 38 years in the Navy, married the year after I graduated, I have been surrounded by school teachers, from my wife, who has been a substitute teacher through all the many moves we've done all over the world, her mother, who's a PhD in education, and my sister, who's an educator in the state of Maine. My brother was a teacher in the state of Rhode Island. And I became something of a teacher, all but in the tactical part of the aviation community in the Navy. As a Top Gun graduate, that was part of my education, teaching people the principles of how to do air-to-air dogfighting all the way back to the 1980s, even the Top Gun movie, if you can imagine that, all the way up forward to running the Naval Academy for 5 years. I came here to Nebraska to promote education, to lead in this amazingly large post-secondary education system here, 51,000 students throughout the state. You all know that, with our main campuses at Lincoln, Omaha, the Med Center, and out in Kearney, and even our Nebraska College of Technical Agriculture out in Curtis, Nebraska. And I came into this thinking I was going to expand the importance and the size of the university system and help with the economy of Nebraska. And then COVID-19 hit. And all of us are dealing with this unique space and how it has kind of had us all pivot to online and remote education. I can talk a lot more about that. And now we're thinking about what the future will hold. So tonight, as I'll take some of your questions, I'll talk about how we are strategically poised to keep the value of education moving, the mission, while we're taking care of our students, our faculty, our communities, just as you are all doing. And I'm excited to hear what's on your mind tonight. So with that, I'll stop and defer to Jenny or Maddie and see what some of the first questions might be.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And we're thrilled that you are from an education family and continue to be in education, because we believe It is the most important profession in the world, and we are excited that you are a part of Nebraska. When we are talking about this very difficult situation we're in, we're really concerned about some of our students who are really struggling. Our students that are college students, our students that are in our families as well, and our seniors in high school are looking forward to going to the university. What kind of advice would you offer for families who are really struggling right now, but thinking about how do I access post-secondary education, especially in these times? What advice would you have for us?
Well, the first thing I would say is, this pandemic has shown where we have the most value in the people that work in our communities. And I don't think there's a single family in Nebraska or America that doesn't have a much greater appreciation for teachers, whether it be through the preschool, the K-12, everywhere else, because those families that are now have their kids at home working on remote education, a lot of family members are now figuring out how to do algebra, higher math, get through assignments. If nothing else, it has put the value of the educator back in the home. So I think everybody should feel that way, and I hear that, I sense that. The other thing I would share with you is for those families that have graduating seniors, whether it be sixth grade going into junior high school, or eighth grade getting ready to go into high school, or those graduating seniors coming out of high school, the first thing I would tell you is make sure you celebrate them. However it's done in your communities. This year will be the year of the asterisk. So the asterisks will be next to every graduate in the class of 2020. And that's not to downplay them. It's actually to celebrate them, to say they are going to be the most remembered class that we may have, over the next 100 years. This is a 100-year pandemic. So I'm seeing that happen in every community, whether they're going through, remote ceremonies, virtual ceremonies, or holding off into the summer to graduate them. I think it's really important that we celebrate the achievement of our graduating, whatever level, whether it be middle school, junior high school, or seniors. I would appeal to those family members and those educators that are seeing their seniors getting ready to leave, coming out of high school. This is probably the most unique time, for us here at the University of Nebraska, where we do see about 80% of our students come from the state of Nebraska. We have done everything to make sure that our students who are either potentially coming to us, who are planning to come to us, or still sitting on the fence wondering if the University of Nebraska, our system, is the place for them. We want to make sure that they know that we have a place for them, that we welcome them, that we have done a lot here, even just the last couple of weeks, to make our program come out to everybody to see how affordable we are, how accessible we are, and how important we are to the future of not only every young person's personal growth and maturity, but to get that education that for some may not have even seen in their reach, but now, because some of the programs we've introduced, they are, and they're not just for them, they are for the future of our state. I personally believe that this is the value of our post-secondary system. Again, whether we're talking community college, some of the vocational schools, the state college system, or the University of Nebraska system, we're all interconnected. And this is that time. This is maybe the most critical time to continue on with education.
I appreciate that, and I really appreciate what you said about celebrating. I have 16-year-old twin grandchildren, and we are really celebrating that my 16-year-old granddaughter passed algebra. Yay! Especially since she was struggling before we went virtual, and she really worked hard, and I'm pleased with her teachers, and I'm glad that she did that. So thank you for reminding us to do that and to really look at those things that we should be celebrating during this time. I'm going to turn it over to Maddie and see what kind of questions we have coming from Facebook. Maddie?
Sure. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, President Carter. Big surprise, everybody's already focused on the fall. And today the president said that he was encouraging colleges and universities to reopen the fall. And I believe you've already had comments about the university reopening in the fall, but how's that going to look different? How are you going to be able to ensure everyone's safety? What do you think things are going to look like as you look in it's kind of a crystal ball to a certain degree, but I'm sure it's also a tremendous amount of planning.
Yeah, it is. And, as I came into this job and it became apparent to us that we were going to be in a much different space as we made those early decisions, along with the governor, the mayors across the entire state about how to social distance, how to take care of ourselves with these, non-pharmaceutical interventions. I think Nebraskans have done an amazing job, even given some of the hot spots that we have across the state. But as we've made those decisions to not bring students back to our campuses here in the spring or even in the summer, we started paying attention to the fall weeks ago. And this is really important. There's no doubt that we're going to eventually get to a vaccine. There's no doubt that we're going to have other medicines that are going to help mitigate coronavirus for whoever gets it. There's no doubt that we're going to be very smart about how we make sure that we don't overwhelm our medical facilities. But it became clear to me that we don't have the privilege to wait until another year from now. Life has got to go on. We're going to have to live with the situation we have. In my military life, having dealt with many combat operations at sea and flying fighter jets and preparing for combat operations, I'll just share with your listeners, almost never did I have perfect information. In fact, even in the middle of combat operations, never did we have perfect information to make decisions on the scene. This is sometimes referred to as the fog of war. And we are now what I would say is in the fog of COVID-19. We have a lot of things that we do know, and we're getting smarter every day, every week. So we have put together, working with our nationally recognized experts from the University of Nebraska Medical Center, a playbook that we are now maturing. We're sharing that with our own campuses. We'll be sharing that with the rest of Nebraska higher education, as well as Matt Bloomstead and the rest of the K-12 program. A lot of people are working on their own independent versions of this. But this is going into some pretty basic assumptions about what we're going to have in the fall to be able to do two big things. The first is make sure we're taking care of our students, their families, and our communities. Okay, that is job number one. We're not going to do anything that is blind to not understanding the situation that's on the ground. The second is to make sure that we can provide the educational mission for which we have been hired to do. And to me, that means not just the remote and distance education program. This is on-campus, in-person education. And that's what most of our students expect, whether it be at higher ed or in our K-12 programs. I mean, as good as we've gotten at doing the remote education here during this period of time, that's not the long-term sustainability aspect of what we want to do to deliver our education mission. So we're looking at how to do that. I felt it was important for us to make a declarative statement that will be open in the fall. We were one of the first campuses across the nation, along with Purdue, to state that, and now other campuses are following us. Many of them just made the statement blanketly, but we are now planning for it with science, with data. We will have dashboards that will inform us about the real situation, and we'll continue to make sure that we protect our students and our communities. So we're excited about that. Our faculty are excited about that. And we're excited about that sense of promise that is coming out there that we'll be ready to execute in the fall.
Thank you. Those are good things to hear. And, the planning and working together, we keep saying we're all in this together. And that means that everybody has a part to play and listening to the experts. And we are very fortunate to have you in MC on the local level, but on the national level, leading so much good research. We have some questions in our chat, a lot of questions. There's a lot of folks on tonight listening to you. You're very popular. Right. You're very popular. One of the questions is, though, we have a lot of teachers who have children who are in athletics and are concerned about those things in the fall. And do you have any indication what that would look like for them, or what it looks like for athletics for the fall for the university as well? I think he's frozen.
Yeah.
And right, I think that's okay. Hopefully we'll get him back here in a second. And And I'm sure that's an important question, Maddie, is about athletics. There's a ton of questions in the chat for sure.
You know, in my family, that's an important question because you know,
I know
my husband is about. The man proposed to me on the field.
I know.
Stadium. So this is
That
important.
is true.
The only question I was told to ask tonight from home. So hopefully.
Well, there's that question. I didn't know that, and I did. And President Carter, hopefully he'll just jump back on. But in the meantime, we had the chance to chat with him a little bit before we got started, Maddie, and I was impressed that, you know, he really has been across the state. He didn't start until January, but I know that he went across the state in November. And he really did get a chance to see what Nebraska is like and what our communities are like. And we gave our friend of education last year to the Scott family, who was giving out a great deal of scholarships for teachers. And looking at diversity in teaching is one thing we really are working on. One of those things that we want to ask President Carter about as well. So hopefully he can jump back on and talk to us about it. In the meantime, you know, we are still working on our teacher TV. What's going on with that right now, Maddie?
So we've got about 2 more weeks left of teacher TV. We're going to go until May 15th. We are in need of secondary teachers. We've got a lot of elementary teachers that are teaching and posting their lessons, but we are in need right now of more secondary teachers to be providing us with lessons. And so if you are interested in being a part of Teacher TV, you can go to nsea.org/volunteer. And on that is a place for you to give us your information. And one of our fantastic 10 teacher leaders who are running this program will reach out to you. Just this week, it was great, Jenny. I had the opportunity to be on a national board webinar where they brought in, it turns out we were the first to do this, but since we've started doing Teacher TV, Kansas, New Jersey, and Maine have all jumped on, and they're also doing a Teacher TV type of program. So it was really fascinating to be with them and to see what we're doing that's kind of the same and what we're doing that's a little bit different, and we're all learning from each other. You know, we jumped in as fast as we could because we felt it was an important part of bridging the divide around equity, to be able to jump in and do that, and so and to offer that. So it's nice that we weren't the only ones that are doing that. Others are also trying to do the same thing.
So when we're talking about what's going to happen in the fall at the university, they have some things in mind, but we're working on that as well. Talking with the commissioner and thinking about in the future. What have we been working on, Maddie? What have we been as NSEA talking about? People are asking in the chat, you know, people are thinking about that. Teachers are thinking about that. Families are thinking about that. What does it look like? The university is a bigger system, and they may be able to spread out a little farther than a high school or a building that's a K-12. And what else? What can we be doing? What do you think, Maddie?
So we're doing a lot of planning. So one of the things we're doing is our NSEAU, which we hosted for the first time last year. We've decided to take that virtual. And so we will have one day on July 7th where we offer strategic information around our association leadership, things around, you know, our pillars, our social justice pillar, our legislative pillar, bargaining, advocacy, those things that we know our leaders know and need to do. But we also know that we really enjoy the opportunity to dive deep into our profession. And so we're going to be providing opportunity for people to dive deep into the profession. By working with the National Network of State Teachers of the Year. They're having a national conference, and we were actually overlapping. Both of us were having some of the same keynotes. And so we're going to work with them, and we're going to offer their conference as a part of our work going forward. And there is President Carter. Wonderful. Glad you were able to rejoin. Thanks for getting back on.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but sorry about the delay there. I heard a question.
That is not a problem.
That is not a problem. Athletics.
Oh, yeah, you can talk about athletics now. Maddie was saying that her husband proposed to her on the field at Memorial Stadium. So he really wanted to know about athletics for sure. Yeah. And there were several other comments about that as well.
So I'll speak to it from the, at the college level. Obviously, we have NCAA Big Ten athletics at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. We play at the Summit League at University of Nebraska-Omaha. And Division II level out at Kearney. A lot of what will happen for us athletically will be driven often by the conferences and the NCAA itself. But make no mistake about it, athletics don't even begin to start unless you have students on campus and you're open, which obviously we're planning to be. And we have, the responsibility to make sure that we're taking care of our athletes. And that goes with the very beginnings of what we have to do to be able to be open in the fall. And that's to have an extensive amount of testing available to us, not just for COVID-19, but for the antibody tests to determine who's had COVID-19. And that'll go for all of our athletes, whether they are participating in NCAA athletics in front of fans or not. So that will be important. There will be an extended timeline for those athletes to be able to return to campus once the campuses are open. And that means they will have to have been open for some period of time, often 4 weeks prior to that. So 2 weeks to get it started, then another 2 weeks to bring them on and have them all tested, make sure we're secure. So there'll be quite an extensive process to bring athletes into the fold. And of course, we'll be following the NCAA rules on that, not only to participate in competition, but even for practice.
Yeah, and people were saying the same thing for any kind of activity, music activities and things
Right.
that are happening. And, the university has lots of camps as well, typically during the summer. And I would imagine those are probably on hold right now, or do you know that or not?
They are. There's virtually no large groups of any camps or anything happening in the summer on any of our campuses. In fact, I would tell you that as we get ready to open in the fall, it'll probably be a walk, jog, run type of approach, or as the governor has talked about, kind of slowly opening the spigot. We're going to want to make sure we know what we have available. We're going to use the natural geography that we have to be able to spread out as much as possible. I would not anticipate large group events happening right out of the gate, whether it be large classrooms, large sporting events, the arts. I think we'll eventually get to that. That will be either later in the fall or the beginning of winter or even into 2021. Those are the type of things that we don't know exactly just yet. I could tell you I'm optimistic for Husker football to start on time in the fall and the Lead Center to be open up and have performances going. But some of that's a wait and see. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't be ready to open up our classrooms, bring students on campus, do the physical distancing, masks, PPE. I mean, we're going to make a lot of that stuff available to our students so we can keep them safe.
Andy, do you have some more questions?
Yeah, I was wondering, what about, and one of the questions in the chat box, what about international students? What's been the status of your international students since this happened and now going into the fall for them?
Yeah, so we're obviously working very hard with our international students to make sure that we're doing everything we can to get them access. For many of our international students that were already here, a great majority of them never went home. They're the ones that we kept the campus open for, kept the dorms open for. We expect many of them to stay and continue on, especially those that are in the graduate level work. But for those that were prospective freshmen, we're having a daily dialogue with them to try to help them get into country, get their green card so they can attend school. And in the worst case, if for some reason they either are not comfortable with that or that doesn't work out right, we'll give them the online program so they can continue on in the future. To me, that's where some of our biggest risk is. Now, thankfully for us here in Nebraska, that's not a huge population. It's about 9% of our overall students, about 4,000 across all of our campuses. So, we want to make sure they feel welcome. That's a part of our population that I would like to eventually grow, but we're going to live with the limits that we have here over the next year and maybe 2 years.
Go ahead, Maddie.
Jenny, one of the questions that came as a part of that and some of what the president's just said is, do you see then having to limit the number of classes available because of the different things that you're adjusting, or do you plan on offering a full schedule?
So we're, again, as I said, we're going to be thinking out of the box. We're going to be looking at the fact that we do have 7 days in the week and 24 hours in the day to make sure that we're spread out. We have things like Pinnacle Bank Arena and some other large venues that we never think to use academically, where we can really spread out for some of those large classes where there's just this fantastic instructor where the students want to see that person give that class actually in person. And there's also still some remote education possibilities where You can do some things still remotely, but still keep in-person classes going. So it won't be a one size fits all. There'll be a combination of things that we'll explore to make sure that we're taking the best advantage of all of our abilities while still having the on-campus in-person experience.
So when you were at the Naval Academy, you really worked on diversity and inclusion, and we are really working on diversifying our teaching profession, which has been a struggle for us in Nebraska. And how did you do that at the Naval Academy, and what can we do at the university system to help bring more diversity into our teaching ranks?
Yeah, we were able to shift pretty quickly. Again, the Naval Academy, for those that are not familiar, is relatively small when we're comparing it to some of the campuses that we have here, 4,400 students. We take in about 1,200 students a year with a target size graduation of about 1,000. And when I first took over as the superintendent of the Naval Academy in 2014, our ethnic minorities represented about 33% of the student population. About 55% of the student population were white male. And by the time I left, between women and minorities, the white male was now a minority themselves. But it's much more about how do you get them into the door and make them feel welcome to apply and get in. It's about how you retain them and how you get them successfully to graduation. So this is the idea about success breeds success. And this is not just about how we put minorities and those that are less represented in the teaching community. This is something that we have to work on across all communities, whether it be in the engineering fields, the manufacturing fields, leadership positions. So this is a level of effort that we've got to continue to take on. For us here at the university, I have more work to be done on how I have better representation across our faculty. We're paying attention to that and how, when we eventually do get back to more wide open hiring. But it's more than just getting minority students accepted into our university. It's how do we make them successful when they're here? And this goes to looking at how we're represented across sports, clubs, activities, student government. We want to make sure that there's a equal opportunity across the whole spectrum. This is one of the reasons that we were inspired to open up what is now known across the state as the Nebraska Promise. As a lot of your folks have probably heard, we introduced this about a week and a half ago, opening up a tuition program for all families in Nebraska whose adjusted gross income is $60,000 or less. This is a very wide swath of people that might not have had college in their viewfinder until we introduced this program. So this is about how we make college not only affordable for many more, but accessible. And again, this eventually equals opportunity. And this is a critical part for how we open up the aperture for so many more people to come. And of course, we're going to help them once they get here, make sure they've got the right academic prowess, the right tutoring, so they can get through the hardest year, which is always the freshman year, so that they retain through their sophomore year and then see themselves to be successfully graduate in 4, 5, or 6 years to go into the workforce.
And are those, so you're working closely with the K-12 public schools and private schools to make sure that you are getting those applications for those as well, I'm sure.
I'll just tell you this, since we introduced this program, we have seen well over 1,000 applications in less than a week, just to our 4 campuses. That just give you a sense of the rush and the need for that, and we know that's going to expand even more.
That is excellent. We want to have opportunity for everyone. And like you said, it's not just the opportunity, it's to making sure that they have the resources available to continue and to see that at the end, not to just get in, but to see that at the end as well. Maddie, I know we have a lot of questions in the chat.
Yeah, we have a couple questions about the UNK expansion that had been planned. And do you see that now continuing in the current economic situation that we're in?
Well, it's hard to predict. I'll tell you that where my laser focus is right now is making sure that we're doing everything we can to welcome Nebraskans, principally Nebraskans, to our 4 main campuses. This year we We had 51,000 students. We graduated the largest class ever in the history of Lincoln at the undergraduate level and graduate level, which is an amazing statement. If you look at the trends nationwide, most large state universities and private colleges, they're already anticipating for a potentially 15% drop in enrollment. I don't think we're going to be there here in Nebraska, but we're not naive to the situation that we're in. We want to make sure that we don't get into that situation by welcoming as many Nebraskans as we can. So for those that are listening in, whether they be faculty members, whether they be parents, whether they be even students that are wondering about where they might go this year, whether they've already been accepted to a large or great school out of state, whether they're thinking about a gap year, or whether or not the right fit for them is come the University of Nebraska. I would tell you emphatically, yes, this is the place to come. This is the time to come. We are the most affordable, best value education of any large state university in the country. And we will be even more affordable going forward with some of the programs that we're going to be introducing going into the future. And that's not even to include Nebraska Promise, the fact that we've declared that we're going to be open in the fall. So we're excited about where we are, where we're going, but this will be a really important year for us to make sure that we even more importantly reestablish ourselves within the state of Nebraska.
So President Carter, one of the questions asked, we talked about the international students who were here. Some of our folks are wondering, are you going to be allowing any of our Nebraska students who've got study abroad programs, if you're going to be allowing that, or if you're going to be encouraging them to stay on campus this year?
Yeah, we'll be following protocols that will be coming from our federal government and the state. We've put a halt on international programs abroad for the summer, but that doesn't mean that we won't have those come back in the near future. I'd like to say they'll be there in the fall. Certainly by the spring of 2021, they should be back. We'll make an assessment on the fall as we get closer. But that is a very important part of our total experiential education.
Living on campus is a big part of that too. And some of the parents are concerned about that part of coming back to campus and living in dorms. What is that going to look like?
Well, we're certainly going to try to spread out the dorms. It's pretty rare for us to have full occupancy on any of our campuses. We'll be smart about our dorms. We'll probably have, one set of dorms set off in case somebody either needs to go through quarantine or be separated from the rest of their classmates or their roommates for whatever reason. So we're going to be very smart about that. Like I said, we're going to have dashboards that'll be able to give us a real-time look at what the situation is on any of our campuses as well as our communities. And that means that more widespread testing and contact tracing. So we're going to go into this with the assurance that we're going to be as safe as possible. If we have to shift for whatever reason for some hotspot that pops up, we'll be ready to react. But as I said earlier, if we were to wait till this thing is completely blown over, we might be sitting on our hands for 2 years. And we all know that we don't have the luxury of doing that. As I said in my open communication about how we were going to open, because of the great talent that we have at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, as well as on all of our campuses, Nebraskans are problem solvers, not problem gazers. So we're going after this in a problem solving sort of way, with 2 main facets in place: to take care of our students' health and security and welfare, as well as our community first, and make sure that we can do our education mission, which means primarily being able to do it on campus.
We have a program at NSEA called the Children's Fund. And it is a fund that we use to help families across the state if they're in need of something. We are hearing that some of our college students are really struggling as well during this situation because their part-time job might have been at the restaurant. I know mine was when I was at the university, and they are really struggling. They may not have had, a situation they could go home to or family. Are there resources available through the university that could help them? I know at UNK they have the big blue
closet, big blue closet,
cupboard. It's a cupboard. Yes.
Yeah, there are a number of resources available. First of all, one of the reasons that we really want to be open on our campus is to get those other jobs at the student unions, the library,
right.
Our food facilities to be available. But there are also these food pantries, and they're available on every campus at Kearney, Lincoln, and Omaha, and the Med Center. We also have an emergency fund that is being funded philanthropically. It's really popular right now, as you can imagine, and we're looking for more people to support that. But yes, all of those food pantries are quite active, and they continue to be supported by the communities.
Yes, we have been busy with that. Our children's fund was using, we've done for medication and different things for our students across the state, shoes and different things. We just donated $25,000 to the Heartland Food Bank because we know that serves all of the state, as well as our retired donated $10,000 as well. So we want to make sure that, whether or not you're a student, you're still a student, and you need those resources as well. And so we're pleased that we can help as well, and that the university has those resources out there. And if there are places, people are looking to donate things too. So if there are places they can donate, that's a good idea as well. Maddie, do you have some more questions?
Yeah, we've seen UNMC has been a tremendous leader in all of this. How do you see UNMC continuing to lead in the coming months and year until a vaccine? Or how do you see their working and how they'll be advising you and the rest of the state, as well as our rural areas?
Yeah, almost at every level. I mean, they're a remarkable resource. As you know, they're one of the national leaders in infectious diseases. They were one of the first to do some of the first tests with remdesivir, as well as continue testing on that. They're bringing in private pharmaceuticals to help with vaccines, as well as bringing in some more test agents, as well as antibody testing. So just in that respect, they are a huge asset for everybody from the governor's level, state level, K-12, all of us. As hotspots have shown up in the meat packing plants, they have gone out there. They've been up to 12 different meat packing plants just in the last few days to give them a checklist, a playbook for how best to take care of their workforce. So working in parallel with us, we've been working on about a 14-page, very serious, detailed checklist. It's everything about the engineering to our buildings, to the social aspects, to the food service, to how we manage in the classrooms, the entire spectrum of how to run the complexities of a on-college campus with, again, 51,000 students, 16,000 staff. So there's more work to be done, but I'm confident that on every campus, we have Tiger teams that are working on the details of how to be prepared to do this. It's going to be work that's gone throughout the summer. We'll continue to communicate. We want to make sure that we build on the trust that we have with our students and our families here in the state of Nebraska. But then we also want to make sure that we're focused on the success of our educational programs. And that's first and foremost at the end of the day, is to educate our students so they're ready to mature and go into the workforce.
Do you think there's been more flexibility, like with fees and different things? I know parents are concerned about what if their kid decides they don't want to live in the dorm and there's a deadline for the dorm. Do you think that the university is going to be more flexible with those kind of things because of this situation?
They already have. We've extended deadlines for financial aid, as well as even the decision to come to one of our campuses from 1 May to 1 June. People need to reach out and communicate with the admissions staff if they have a specific need. All of our admissions staff, they are poised and empowered to help out with because every situation is a little bit unique. And I would just say for those that are just that uncertain or thinking about a gap year, I would tell you that we still have online programs that will replicate everything that we do academically on our campuses that are available at an incredible value. So there's absolutely nothing that would prevent somebody from being part of the University of Nebraska should they want to come, between either online, on campus, or even some sort of blend.
Very good. Maddie, what else do we have?
Well, actually, you just answered one of the questions that several people were having, because they were saying, what if we don't want to do blended? What if we just want to be online? And so what I hear you saying is, yes, if you just want to be online, you can be a part of the university system from what you and your family consider the safest place, which may be at home, correct?
Correct. And I will share with you that as we did in the spring, all those that had paid their tuition to be on campus as they transitioned to remote education, which, as you all know, is a little bit different than online. Online are products that hang on a cloud or somewhere where you can go get them at your time, whereas remote education is often synchronous, meaning just like we're doing now, it's in the real time where you have a faculty member or teacher speaking to students through Zoom or Skype or Google Hangouts or whatever it is. Those programs have been made available all the way through the summer at the same cost of being on campus. We're looking at the cost options to make sure that we're making our online programs as best value as we can for those that are truly dedicated to getting their education through that mechanism.
That's fantastic. So then do you see the university, one of the questions somebody asked was, do you see cutting staff? Is that part of what you're thinking about now, or you're just moving forward with trying to offer as much as you can and keep your people in place?
Well, our revenue comes through really two main ways, as most people know. I mean, enrollment, that's a big part, and then of course through the state, which provides about 1/3 of our entire operating budget. So if you were to ask me, am I concerned about the future budget of our University of Nebraska system? Of course, just like every major campus in the country, as we should be across all of education, because the state of Nebraska is going to lose some revenues this year. There's no doubt about it. So there's still some unknowns there. Where I'm focused right now is making sure that we are as solid on enrollment as we can be. As I said earlier, a lot of major campuses are looking at 15 to 20% drops in enrollment. I will tell you that based on our applications right now, we are at the same place this year as we were last year. Of course, that doesn't mean students will necessarily show up. We want to make sure that we give them, those special touch points to know that they're welcome, that they're going to be safe. We want to see them on our campuses. This is a special place to be. But yes, we are going to be going through some financial drills to make sure that we're ready for whatever the financial situation is going to come. We may have to look at some combining of programs across our multi-campuses between Kearney, Lincoln, and Omaha. But whatever it'll be, it will have no impact on the students in terms of the value of the education that they're going to get. I can assure everybody of that.
That's excellent. I think what, the overall theme though that we're hearing is communication. We need to, make sure that we're communicating with the folks that have, the answers. And if they don't have the answers, they're going to look for those answers for you, because everyone has a little bit different of situation. If you're looking at a blend, or you're looking at online, or you're looking at a dorm, but to just assume something is not a good idea at this point. You need to ask a question. Is that what you would suggest people do?
Absolutely. And as I've told my chancellors and my other senior administrators, this is a time where we also need to be good listeners. We need to listen to our constituents and our customers, which are our students. So we are listening to our students and their needs and their families, and we want to be communicating with them. I have put out probably more communications as the president here, often a couple a week. And we'll have another one coming out this week to talk a little bit more about the future, because communication is key. And I just want everybody that's listening out there to know that, we are not making any decisions for the future based on, our gut or on hope or just what we think might happen. We're basing it on fact and science. And of course, we want to make sure that we continue to inspire our future students and give them that sense of hope that we're going to take care of them and their community.
We have to have hope, but the action has to be behind that hope with a plan. And we believe, what we're hearing from you is good that we have that kind of plan. And when we're talking K-12, those are kind of the same things that we're dealing with, looking at what does that look like across the state. And as you're, moving on. We were talking when you were off for a little while about you getting to know Nebraska. And how have you felt in Nebraska? This is a new state for you. You've lived a lot of places, I'm sure, in the Navy, but Nebraska is unique. It's not for everyone, but it is for you. How's it going?
It is definitely for me. And as I had the privilege of getting throughout the entire state in November while I was being vetted for the position, I got to meet with thousands upon thousands of people from Gering to North Platte to Grand Island to Kearney to Omaha, Nebraska City, and everywhere I went, what I took away from it is, first of all, people are genuinely nice. Nebraska nice is a real thing.
It
The
is.
second is how much people care about education in this state, whether it be K-12, post-secondary, or the University of Nebraska. And I'm talking well beyond, volleyball and football. People truly do care about education here, which is not the same everywhere across the country. So that part is, and people have made both me and my wife and our family feel very welcome here. So even though I've still only been here for just a little bit under 4 months, I feel very much at home here, very comfortable here. The people have been wonderful. And, the old state saying that Nebraska isn't for everyone, I think it's the opposite. I think Nebraska is for everyone, and it is the good life.
I agree with you totally. And if your wife is still interested in substituting, we have lots of substituting jobs. So, we can hook her up in a heartbeat. Maddie, I know you have a couple. I know Maddie has a couple other questions.
So we spent a lot of time talking about the incoming students, but we've had some questions pop up about students who are graduating. And we know one of the things universities do is you help people find jobs. There are some people that are real concerned. What is the university going to do in the current environment to help people find jobs? And then a lot of those folks are carrying college debt. What are you going to do to help those people with their college debt?
Yeah, so we're working with the business community, the chambers of commerce. Obviously, we have a very robust intern program, which has been almost across the state, unless you could work remotely, almost been put on hold. So, this is a tough time right now for some transitioning. But what I would tell you is whether you're in the teaching program, some of the other professions, whether it be medical, law, manufacturing, even going into agriculture, the opportunity to go to work here in Nebraska is incredibly high. I mean, with less than 2% unemployment before COVID-19 hit, we're certainly going to see some level of unemployment, but we're going to have some challenges. We can do a lot of things remotely. Some of the things that can't be done remotely are certain laboratories. If you just think about the dentist, nursing, and doctor profession, those things have to be done with a certain amount of experiential. Even in the teaching perspective, student teaching and the ability to get in a classroom to get some practice, some of that has been put on hold. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to come back strong. If you look across the entire state of Nebraska, well over 1 in 6 teachers are made through our University of Nebraska system. 1 in 7 out of Kearney alone. And that's going to grow. I mean, if you look at the College of Teaching that's happening at the University of Lincoln, Nebraska-Lincoln, that's going to be on the upswing and growth. So we're looking to put more and more emphasis on that because, as we've seen here during this pandemic, the value of the teacher has never been more important. But getting that experiential part, some of it can be done remotely and some of it can't. So we're looking forward to getting back into that.
This is a good time for us to mention that NSEA actually has an open position right now for an associate staff person. We have That's right. Our own little public service announcement. We have excellent pay, we have excellent benefits, and we are looking to hire within the next few weeks. And so we would encourage people, we're posting it on the Facebook live chat where you can go on Indeed and find the NSEA job, and we would love to hire, someone who will meet our qualifications. So please apply. President Carter, what about, you talked about the number of people that the university system, Jenni graduated as an undergrad. I think I got my graduate degree there. What do you think student teaching is going to look like? And how are we poised to help these people who weren't able to finish their student teaching experience? Any special plans for those folks?
Well, I think we've got to find places for them to get into the classroom. We're often looking at other unique ways for them to do things even remotely. I mean, there's still a lot that we're learning. We pivoted from in the classroom to remote education in the period of about 3 weeks. And I will tell you, because of some of the work that was done even as far back as 5 years ago with our IT systems, the ability to use programs like Canvas, Zoom that many of us are on right now, feeding into Facebook, we have only scratched the surface at what we can do experientially by not actually being there. There's more to be done there. And I'm convinced that, this necessity being the mother of invention is going to get us there even over the course of the next year. There is going to be a strong need for more teachers, not just here in the state, but nationally. And we have historically always produced a great number of teachers here in the state, and we're going to continue to do that.
As we were getting ready for this interview, I spent some time doing a little bit of research, and I didn't even know about the Center for Transforming Teaching that UNM, that the university system has. And I spoke with Nick Monk, and I was thrilled at the resources that you have there. And he immediately said, we'd love to partner, and we'd love to present, and we'd love to, he's like, he was just so much about how can I bring the university to help the struggles that teachers are having, because you guys have done some work around that. And in fact, when you were at the Naval Academy, you only had 16 students on campus, but 100,000 plus distance education students. How do you make that work? I mean, what advice do you have to our K-12 educators who have, I say, turn the Titanic on a grain of rice to move to these continuous learning plans?
Yeah, so this was a period of time in 2013. So now we're dating ourselves 7 years ago. I mean, think about how antiquated some of our IT systems were even 5 years ago, let alone 7 years ago. So I was the president of the Naval War College, which is a postgraduate program up in Newport, Rhode Island. Only about 1,600 students that are in residence there, of which about 1/3 were international students. But there was a great need across the entire Navy and across all of the services to get this graduate level education. Many of them, and I was one of those myself. I took courses of that program going all the way back to 2004 remotely while I was at sea deployed on a ship. Now, I could not do what we have been doing just this last spring about going synchronous, where I had an IT network where I could connect from the middle of the ocean to a faculty member talking to me like we're doing right now. But there were products that were hung on a thing called Blackboard and some other programs. I could go in and pull them down, do my papers, and submit them. Well, we found once we opened that spigot up, we went from a couple 10, 20,000 to well over 100,000 worldwide in a matter of just a couple of years. And today that program is now even more vibrant. More people are accessing that. So I would use that as just the beginning of a role model for where we might need to be, because this pandemic is probably not the last one we'll ever have to go to. We will have to be prepared to do things remotely, maybe someday in the future. And it comes down to the most basic things. Do we have IT systems that can support? Do we have high-speed internet capability through the most rural parts of our state and throughout? I mean, these are the things that I'm talking to Matt Bloomberg and the governor about. It's really important that we have that accessibility to everyone, because once we're there, we put everybody on the same, the same playing field so they can operate similarly.
So when you talk about rural Nebraska, we talk about that a lot, and we talk about broadband a lot. But one of the access that we also talk about is like a telehealth services. Right. Do you know, is UNMC doing any more telehealth kind of things to help with our rural Nebraska folks to be able to provide them some services as well?
We are. And of course, as many of the listeners that are on here know, that our extension program that we have throughout the entire state, think about how valuable they were last year during the floods. Yes. They help with businesses. They help with not just farmers and ranchers. They can help with some of these issues as well. And UNMC does have a tremendous capability with telehealth, as well as the mental health issues that we know so many people are struggling with just by virtue of the fact that everybody's been sequestered for 6 weeks. So this is really important part, and I would tell you one of the most valuable aspects of what we're trying to make available on all of our campuses. Most families and most students coming out of high school now care about really 3 things. They care about the affordability of the school they're going to go to. They care about the access and the culture of what it means to have the ability to get mental health support. And then they care about the ability to get a job when they finish and graduate. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to all those things, and our medical center is a key partner in all of that.
That's very good, because I know, in rural Nebraska as well as online is tough for some kids as well. And they don't have the ability to, when they're interacting with a professor or they're interacting with an instructor, sometimes to really express themselves, and they might struggle a little bit. Is there training for instructors and professors to kind of say, hey, this is a new thing for some of these kids, and if they really are struggling, there are some extenuating circumstances that they need to be aware of?
Yeah, as you know, and a lot of teachers have had to learn how to work remotely for the first time in their lives, and it's not easy. There's so much that's missed by not having eye-to-eye contact, the body language, all of those things that are so important. The innate nature of a teacher to be able to see what's happening with a child and where they are in their classroom and amongst others. Oftentimes they have to learn that through somebody that's already done it. And we had the benefit of so many of our faculty members that were already experienced in doing that, and they helped a lot of our, at the college and at the master's level, how to do some of that. I talked to so many of our faculty members that were new to that. They were mostly very energized by getting into that space for the first time. But it's challenging, and we have to admit that we don't always get it perfect on the first trilene. So it requires work, it requires the personal touch, and you have to keep working at it. I mean, that's the basics of it.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your Sunday evening to visit with us. We've had some great questions, and we appreciate your time. We talk about all of these things as just needing some grace, right? We give ourselves some grace, we give others some grace, but we appreciate you giving us your time and your grace to help us understand what's happening at the university, and that, tomorrow it may be totally different, because that's what's happening right now, is that we're just moving as we go, and that we appreciate the communication.
Well, Jenny, thanks for letting me be on with you tonight. Maddie, thank you. Thank you to all your listeners. I know there's still a bunch of questions still out there. Maybe we can look at another opportunity here. But pay attention. We will be communicating often. I think we'll be even be able to answer some of the questions that are out there. And thank you to everybody for their support of our University of Nebraska system. It's one of the best in the country. I can say that, having been all over the country. And I'll just finish with go Big Red, go Lopers, go Mavericks, go Med Center.
There you go. I graduated from the university. I have 3 children that have graduated from the university system. So I'm in there as well. And Maddie bleeds red as well. So we're all good. So thank you very much for joining us. We're going to make a couple announcements. Maddie, what else do we have going on?
Well, before President Carter leaves, I have an ask for him. I'm really intrigued by the work that you're doing and the model that you're putting together, I think, around best practices. And we'd love to work with you around how we could also utilize that for the K-12 setting. As our schools go back in the fall, we'd like to utilize the expertise you're tapping into as well.
Yeah, we're all talking across the leadership level. In fact, I'm meeting with all of the education administrative leads this week. We're going to share our checklist with them. And some of the most basic things that we have to get better at is even how we share possibly our IT systems. I mean, we're doing that already with the state college system. A lot of people may not be aware of that. I think I saw a question pop up about some of the privates here in the state.
Yeah.
I want you to know that they're already talking to us, some of them, about the future, and we're giving them our thoughts because we're all in this together. I mean, this is the value of education, whether you're talking Doane, Wesleyan, Creighton, Hastings. We all are doing somewhat similar business in the college and university level. So it's important that we share our best practices to make ourselves successful. There are 37 post-secondary institutions in the state. We want them all to be vibrant and successful.
And bottom line, we want all of our students and our citizens to be successful as well. So thank you very much.
Okay,
Maddie, what do we need to announce?
All right, announcements. First of all, nationally, this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and we want you all to know that we appreciate everything that you're doing.
Teacher appreciation.
Yes,
watch our Facebook page. We're going to do hashtag Thank a teacher. Send your videos, do a picture, thank a teacher that's made, make a little sign, make a little video, make a little TikTok, do all of those things that you do. Hashtag thank a teacher.
Excellent. And so because this is Teacher Appreciation Week, we want you to have a great week, but we also want you to have a great Mother's Day. Those of us out there who are mothers in one way or another, Jenny's got her 8th grandchild now. So we want you to celebrate Mother's Day next week. So we're not going to have Facebook Live next Sunday. We're going to move it to Monday, May 11th at 7:30 so that we can all celebrate Mother's Day, and hopefully somebody else will be cooking for you and doing the dishes. We did mention that we do still need teachers for Teacher TV. We're going to be doing this for 2 more weeks. We especially need secondary teachers. We're paying $25 for the half-hour lessons, $50 for the full-hour lessons. So please contact us, reach out. We'd love to have you on Teacher TV. On Friday, you were sent an email from Jenny with lots of important information. If you did not get that email, please call our 800 number and let's track down why you didn't get it. But it's got some important information for the summer. So please look in your email, look in your spam. Make sure it didn't go to your junk folder. If you're one of our members, it's got information you want to know. It includes information on webinars that we're going to be offering all summer, as well as continuing resources around COVID. And information on NSEAU. During our little intermission there, we were talking about the fact that we're going to be partnering with the National Network of State Teachers of the Year, and we're going to join their their 2020 National Teacher Leadership Summit this year to be providing professional development to our teachers. And so we want to be able to offer that to our members. We are offering that to our members, and we want to provide you more information. So please keep on the lookout for that. And very importantly, a week from Tuesday, I think it's a week from Tuesday, isn't it? It's not this Tuesday.
It is.
It's a week from Tuesday, right?
Can you believe that? That's so fast.
I know. It's time to vote, folks. And we need you to be voting for pro-public education candidates. Teachers in this state are the ones who do the recommending. Our teachers are the ones who do the interviewing. Any candidate who submits a questionnaire will be interviewed in the categories that we interview. We don't interview for your, local treasurer or village, mayor, but we do for the state legislature and for
our candidates that have interview teams. So that have been recommended by your governance districts. Hey, Maddie, I know a lot of people we're just a couple minutes over, but a lot of people are asking about school in the fall. And I just want you to know that we're going to be talking about that. We're meeting with folks. It's really hard to make any predictions right now, but we really want you to know that NSEA is on top of things and that we're going to be doing these kind of things to keep you updated. So please read your emails if you're a member, and then keep on the Facebook Live with us. And we will, are we doing those Monday after Mother's Day?
We're going to do May 11th, and then we're going to do the last one on the 17th. Sunday, May 17th will be our, now we say the last one right now, tentatively.
The last one, that's every week.
That's right. And then we're going to move, we think, towards once a month. And so we'll, if something comes up that we think is really, oh my gosh, we need to let you know about it, we'll jump on. But otherwise, we think we're going to move towards once a month for the summer. As Jenny said, we are continuing to meet with the commissioner. We're meeting with state boards of ed. We're meeting with all kinds of folks to talk about what will this look like. What are the continuous learning plans going to look like? There are some districts that are saying, one of the questions that came up, and I typed in and answered it, are people going to have in-person summer school? Well, yeah, there are some places that are planning to have groups of 10 or less, and they're going to do small in-person summer school. That is allowed. They are most probably going to allow that. However, most districts are going to be trying to do things remotely. So we are on top of that. If you have questions and concerns, we encourage you to reach out to us at the 800 number, email us, reach out to your organizational specialist, and let us answer those kinds of questions and help you walk through that. We are working, though, on saying that when we do come together in the fall, whenever that is, depending on what the health situation looks like, that there are certain things that need to be in place for the health and safety of everyone. Just as President Carter said, he's working on that. What does that look like at the university system? We're working with folks to talk about what does that look like at our K-12 systems. You should all have, and it's a big article that's in the upcoming Voice, it should be in your mailboxes this week. Every school district should have a school safety committee. And one of the things your school safety committee should be doing is meeting to discuss how are you going to handle this? And you have the right to ask your district to hold that meeting and to deal with those issues. And there's more information on that.
Teachers need to be on
Yes.
Everybody needs to have a member on the school safety. It's not what they're telling you. Your input is valuable. And, you know, those are things that you need to talk about. Yeah, when we talked about a little bit earlier that communication is key, we mean communication is key. You communicating with us communicating with you, but let us know what's going on and we will keep you informed as well. And we just appreciate everything that you're doing. And hashtag thank a teacher this week, for our parents, for our, you know, teachers who can thank other teachers, for everybody who's out there working. We know this is tough. You have a couple more weeks left of this very unique situation, and then we will hit the next curve and see what's happening. But please know that NSEA is here for you. We are here for you, and let us know if there's anything we can do. And with that, I think we covered everything, Maddie.
We're good. Thanks, folks.
All
Have
right.
a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Friends.
Stay well.
Bye-bye.